Does anyone know?
It was from 9:30 to 12 Prabhu.
Till 12. Oh.
9:30 to 11:30.
Till 11:30.
11:30 there is an offering of
Pushpanjali. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Pushpanjali and the offering of the MSF reserves.
Jaya. So I was looking on the internet today, and I went to Krishna.com and pulled a long biography about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And because it's so long, I thought if we start at 9:30, there'll never be a chance to read this, so I would do something else rather than reading the whole thing. But, so I would give a lecture. But before we start the lecture, before 9:30, I thought I would read a part of this, and just to get us warmed up. And of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very active in preaching Krishna consciousness for many, many years. But I'm starting in 1887. And he was born in 1838. So already he's almost 50 years old, 49 years old. Almost 50 years old. 1887, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur resolved to quit government service and to go to Vrindavan with Bhaktibhringa Mahashaya for the rest of his life. One night, in Tarakeshwar, while still in government service, he had a dream in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him and spoke. "You will certainly go to Vrindavan, but first there is some service you must perform in Navadvip. So, what will you do about that?" When the Lord disappeared, the Thakur awoke. Bhaktibhringa Mahashaya, hearing of this dream, advised Bhaktivinoda to apply for a transfer to Krishnanagar near Navadvip. He did, even turning down offers of personal assistantship to the Chief Commissioner of Assam and to the seat of the Minister of Tripura State. He also tried to retire at this time, but his application was denied. Finally, he arranged for a mutual exchange of personnel. Himself for Babu Radha Madhava Basu, Deputy Magistrate of Krishnanagar. During his stay at Krishnanagar, Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to go to Navadvip and search for the birth site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One night he was sitting on the roof of the Rani Dharmashala in Navadvip, chanting on his prayer beads, when he spotted a tall tree next to a building that gave off a remarkable effulgence. He went to the Krishnanagar library, where he began to study old manuscripts of Chaitanya Bhagavat and Navadvip Dham Parikrama, and some old maps of Nadia. He went to the village of Balaladibi and spoke with the elderly people, uncovering facts about modern-day Navadvip. Eventually he discovered that the place he'd seen from the Dharmasala rooftop was in fact the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was confirmed by Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the head of the Gaudiya Vaishnava community in Nadia. A great festival was held there. In glorification of this sacred place, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur published the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. So, this is something that Lord Chaitanya also deputed the 6 Goswamis to do, was to live in Vrindavan, Brajamandala, and to study maps and consult with histories and find out the places of the pastimes of Krishna, all the different places of the different pastimes of Krishna, and to excavate those places and make temples and, places of pilgrimage there. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also had been assigned this duty to find the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the actual birthplace. And so this is a wonderful story of how he did that. And when Jagannath Das Babaji at the time was well over 100 years old and was carried in a basket, but when they took him to that spot to see if he would agree that it was the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, he jumped out of the basket and began dancing there. Hare Krishna, we're starting reading a little early before the 9:30 lecture begins, just because so welcome. In the same year, Srila BhaktiVinod Thakur renovated the house of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji at Ravaskata. He took leave from the office for 2 years and acquired a plot of land at Sri Godrumadweep, or Swarupganga. He built a retirement house there for his bhajan worship and called it Surabhikunj. In 1890, he established the Namahatta there, the marketplace of the holy name. Sometimes Jagannath Das Babaji would visit and have kirtan, chanting devotional songs, glorifying Krishna. Several hundred years earlier, Lord Nityananda, the eternal brother of Lord Chaitanya, had established his Namahatta in the same place. Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered himself the street sweeper of the Namahatta of Lord Nityananda. While he was situated at Krishna Nagar, every spare moment was spent in Mayapur, the holy land of the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. When the birthplace was uncovered, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Jagannath Das Babaji would worship Lord Chaitanya there. Once, one of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's sons contracted a skin disease. Jagannath Das Babaji told the boy to lie down at the birth site of Lord Chaitanya for the night. He did so, and the next morning he was cured. To read the whole pastime, of course, this is condensed from a book called The Seventh Goswami. And even this is the condensed version. Would take a very long time to read the whole thing. So I thought before the class starts, we'll just read a little from it. Awesome. 1888. Wait a second. 1890, we're going back in time. 1888, he took charge of the village of Natrakan, in the district of Mayamanasingha, because he could not keep good health at Krishna Nagar. From Natrakan, he went to Tangaila, and from there he was transferred to the district of Vardhamana. There he would have kirtan with devotees of Krishna at a place called Amalajora. 1890, he was put in charge of the Kalara subdivision, and from there he would often visit holy places. From there he was transferred to Ranigat, and then to Dinajpur again. Shailaja Prasad, his younger son, was born there. In Dinajpur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote his Vidva Ranjana commentary and translation of Bhagavad Gita. It was published in 1891 with the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushana. He had previously published a Bengali Gita with the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti many years earlier. 1891, Bhaktivinoda Thakur took leave from government service for 2 years. He desired to preach the holy names of Krishna. His base was at Godrumadweep. From there, he used to visit other places to lecture in clubs, societies, and organizations. This he had also done in Krishna Nagar. 1892, he traveled and preached in the Basirahat district with some other Vaishnavas. All the while he was writing also. He opened many branches of Namahatta in different districts in Bengal. The Namahatta became a self-sustaining success which continued to spread even after his return to government service. From Bashirahatta, he sent out on his third trip to Vrindavan. He stopped off at Amalajora to celebrate the Ekadashi day with Srila Jagannath Das Babaji. In Braja, he visited all the forests and places of Lord Krishna's pastimes. He continued to give lectures and readings on Harinam in various places in Bengal when he returned to Calcutta. 1894, he gave a lecture on his investigation into the whereabouts of the birth site of Sri Chaitanya. His audience included highly learned men from all over Bengal who became very enthusiastic at the news. Out of this gathering was formed the Sri Navadvip Dham Pracharini Shabha, an organization for spreading the glories of Navadvip Mayapur. All the learned pundits, having celebrated fully on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's evidence, agreed that the Yogapith was the true birth site of Mahaprabhu. That year on Gaur Purnima, a big festival was held to witness the translation of Gaura Vishnupriya deities at the Yogapith. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur personally, in a spirit of pure humility, went door to door collecting funds to build a temple on the site. His venture was highly successful, and the temple was built. In October of 1894, at age 56, he retired from his post as deputy magistrate, though this move was opposed by his family and the government authorities. He stayed at Surabhi Kunj, preached, and revised his old writings. Sometimes he went to Calcutta, where he begged door to door for building the Yogapith temple. 1896, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur went to Tripura state at the request of the king, who was a Vaishnava. He stayed in the capital for 4 days and preached the glories of the holy name. His lecture on the first day amazed the local pundits. For the next 2 days, the royal family and public were thrilled to hear his talks on the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mercy reached far beyond the geographical boundaries of India or even Asia. He was intent on spreading Krishna consciousness to the West. He sent out a small booklet written in Sanskrit, Sri Gauranga Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram, with a commentary by Srila Sitikanta Vachaspati of Nadia. The introduction, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts, was in English. The book found its way into the library of the Royal Asiatic Society in London, the library of McGill University in Canada, and other respectable institutions. It was reviewed in the Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society by Mr. F.W. Fraser, an erudite European scholar. This is, I think, my godbrother Narasringa Maharaj published this book, and this is the introduction, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Lives and Precepts, which was sent out the same year that Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was born. It was sent to the West, and Srila Prabhupada used to remark that the book had traveled to the West before, when the year he was born, before he came to the West. In the rainy season of the same year, requested by the Maharaj of Tripura, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur went to Darjeeling and Karsiam. In 1897, he went to villages such as Medinipur and Sori to preach. Sri Shishir Kumar Ghosh was the founder of the Amrita Bazar Patrika, a leading newspaper in Bengal at the time, and the author of Sri Amiya Namacharita. He had great respect for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and took up the preaching of the holy name throughout Calcutta and in many villages in Bengal. Even the famous Bengali novelist Bankim Chandra had written a book about Lord Krishna, and he came to talk to Bhaktivinoda Thakur about it, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur lectured him for 4 days and instructed him that some of his ideas were speculative and weren't in line with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and convinced him to change the book. He was close friends with the family, the father of Rabindranath Tagore, and that very famous Devendranath and all those Tagores who were very important to the cultural life of Bengal. And Rabindranath won the Nobel Prize. I think he's the first person from India to win a Nobel Prize for literature, maybe the only person, but certainly the first. He was friends with William Butler Yeats. But I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur lived his life was a life of preaching and writing, and also working at the same time as a householder, caring for his family, large family, and a government magistrate. But he also moved in the highest literary circles, the cream of Bengali intellectual society, actually, for many years, not just in these later years, but even much earlier when he was 30, 40 years old. He gave that lecture about the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think, when he was like around 31. I could look it up. I have a list here of his writings. Let me just quickly finish up this little portion. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son Bimala Prasad, later Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, had been residing at Puri as a celibate monk, brahmachari, and was engaged in worship at the Gandharvika Giridhari Mat, one of 7 temples near the tomb of the Saint Haridas Thakur, near the ocean. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, desiring to help his son, had the monastery cleaned and repaired when he came to visit Puri. After the young Siddhanta Saraswati left for Navadvip Mayapur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur constructed his own place of worship on the beach, calling it Bhakti Kuti. Srila Krishnadas Babaji, an assistant and devoted disciple of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, joined him there and became very dear to him. He remained his constant attendant up to the end of the Thakur's life. At the Bhakti Kuti, the Thakur began solitary bhajan. He had many visitors. Forgive me, my eyes are bad and this type is small. Some simply wanted to disturb him, whereas others were sincere and benefited greatly from his spiritual inspiration. In 1908, one of his sons informed him that Sir William Duke, Chief Secretary to the government, was visiting Calcutta. Formerly, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had served under him as a magistrate. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur made an appointment to meet him the next day in Calcutta. Sir William Duke greeted Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the street outside and personally escorted him into his office. With folded hands, he asked forgiveness for having once planned to remove Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the office of district magistrate, because he thought that if such qualified Indians took up such posts, the British would not last much longer in India. In those days, while studying Bhaktivinoda Thakur's activities, the magistrate would come to the house and would be fed by the Thakur's wife. But now he was begging forgiveness as he was getting on in life. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur answered, "I consider you to be a good friend and a well-wisher all along." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was pleased with him and gave him his blessings. Later, he admitted he was astonished that Sir William Duke had wanted to harm him. In the year 1908, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur took the external dress of a Babaji, signifying one who devotes the remainder of his life to solitary devotional practices, especially chanting the holy names. For the first 2 years, he would travel between Calcutta and Puri and was still writing books. 1910, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur shut himself away from the world and entered Samadhi, claiming paralysis. He devoted the remainder of his years to solitary bhajan, meditation, prayer, and chanting Lord Krishna's holy names. He actually had a place that he stayed, like solitary confinement. People would put food by his door so that he would be completely solitary in Bhajan Kutir for 4 years. On June 23rd, 1914, just before noon at Jagannath Puri, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur left his body. On the Gaudiya Panjika calendar, this day was also the disappearance day of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. By the way, the Gaudiya Panjika calendar was established by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had the vision that we should have a calendar. Bengal has its own calendar already that's different from the Western, whatever it is, the Gregorian calendar that they use now, most of the world. There's a Bengali calendar, and I think it's called Shakabda. And then there's a Gaudiya calendar that's based on the birth of Lord Chaitanya as the beginning of the calendar. And that was inaugurated by BhaktiVinod Thakur. His bodily remains were taken from Orissa back to his beloved Godruma in the land of Nadia, the land of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal pastimes. Amidst Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the Lord's holy names, his remains were interred in Godruma. In an obituary about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Sharada Charana Mitra, Calcutta High Court judge, wrote, quote, "I knew Thakur Bhaktivinoda intimately as a friend and a relation. Even under the pressure of official work as a magistrate in charge of a heavy subdivision, he could always find time for devotional contemplation and work, and whenever I met him, our talk would turn in a few moments to the subject of bhakti and achintya bheda abheda, dvaita dvaita vada, etc., and the saintly work that lay before him. Service of God is the only thing he longed for, and service under the government, however honorable, was to him a clog." His son Lalita Prasad recalled the following about his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, including his daily schedule. From 7:30 to 8 p.m. he would take rest. Or 7:30 or 8 p.m. he would take rest. At 10 p.m. he would rise, light an oil lamp, and write. He would write all night. At 4 a.m. he would take rest. At 4:30 he would rise after a half an hour of sleeping, wash his hands and face, chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra Japa. Then at 7 o'clock he would write letters. At 7:30 he would read. At 8:30 he would receive guests or continue to read. At 9:30 to 9:45 he would take a 15-minute nap. At 9:45 he would take his morning bath, his breakfast of a couple of chapatis and a half quart of milk and some fruits. And then at 9:55 he would go to court in a carriage. He would wear coat and pants to court with double-sized Tulsi neck beads and Vaishnav tilak. He was very strong in his decisions. He would decide immediately. He did not allow any humbug in his court. No upstart could stand before him. He would shave his head monthly. He never allowed harmonium in the Sankirtan, considering it a distraction from the sacred sound of the holy name. He never had any debts. At 10 a.m., court began. At 1 p.m., the court finished. He'd come home and bathe and refresh. At 2 p.m., he'd return to office. At 5 p.m., he would translate works from Sanskrit to Bengali, then take evening bath and a meal of rice, couple of chapatis, half quart of milk. He always consulted a pocket watch and was always accountable, keeping time very punctually. He was always charitable to brahmanas and equally benefited other castes. He never showed pride, and his amiable disposition was a characteristic feature of his life. He never accepted gifts from anyone. He even declined all functions and titles offered by the government to him on the grounds that they might stand against his holy mission of life. He was very strict in moral principles and avoided the luxurious life. He would not even chew betel. He disliked theaters because they were frequented by public women. He spoke Bengali, Sanskrit, English, Latin, Urdu, Persian, and Oriya. He started writing books at age 12 and continued turning out a profuse number of volumes up until his departure from this world. I also printed out from the same website a list of books, and this is just a partial list of books. And wow, it's many pages long. This is a partial list of books written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I won't read all the books, but you can see, I don't know if you can see that. All right, this is one page. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 books on this first page. The first book was written in 1849. He would have been about 11 years old then. In 1850, he wrote a book in Bengali called Hari Katha, Topics of Lord Hari, a poem. So he wrote a poem. And another poem that year glorifying the Lord's pastimes called Leela Kirtan. And in 1851, he wrote verses about Durga's battle with two demons, Shumbha and Nishumbha, called Shumbha Nishumba Yudha in Bengali. So anyway, this is one page, second page, third page. Some of these are very important and big books. Some of them are smaller poems. Fifth page. He also was publishing newspapers. Seventh page. So sometimes Lord Bhaktivinoda Thakur is known as the seventh Goswami. And I'll talk something about that today. So let's chant this. There's a song by Narottam Das Thakur. And it is called, it's on page 91 of the songbook, or you can see it on the screen. It's a lamentation due to separation from the Lord and his associates, from the cycle of prayers known as prarthana. It's called Saparshada Bhagavad Viraha Janita Vilapa. Jayanilo Prema Dhana. We know also that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote so many of the songs in our songbook. He wrote the Sharanagati collection of prayers, and I don't know, some other collections, but he wrote volumes of Vaishnava songs in Bengali that are still beloved today by thousands, millions of people. And now, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, they're known all over the world and sung all over the world. Jayanilo prema dhanna karuna prachur. Jayanilo prema dhanna karuna prachur. Heno Prabhu kotha kela acharya Thakur. Heno Prabhu kotha gela acharya Thakur. Kaha mura swarup rupa, kaha sanatan, kaha mura swarup rupa, kaha sanatan. Kaha Dasharaghunatha Patita Pavan. Kaha Dasharaghunatha Patita Pavan. Kaha Mura Bhatta Juga, Kaha Kabiraj. Kaha Mura Bhatta Juga, Kaha Kabiraj. Eka Kale Kota Gela Akruranatha Raj. Eka Kale Kota Gela Akruranatha Raj. Bhashane kutibo mata annale poshibo. Bhashane kutibo mata annale poshibo. Goranga gunera nidhi kota gele pabo. Goranga gunera nidhi kota gele pabo. Sheshava shangira shange je koilo bilash, she shaba shangira shange, je koilo bilash, she shangana paya kande narotamodas, she shangana paya kande narotamodas. So, the translation, this is a song of separation from the departed Vaishnavas. And the translation is, he who brought the treasure of divine love and who is filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatana? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock, and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Can Haribol Prabhu in the back, can you bring me one Bhagavad Gita? Let's look at verse 632. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Atma, please repeat. Opamyena sarvatra, atmopamyena sarvatra, samam pashyati yaha Arjuna, samang pashyati yorjuna, sukham va yadi va dukham, sukhang va yadi va dukham, sa yogi paramaha mataha, sa yogi parama mataha, atmopamyena sarvatra, samang pashyati yorjuna, sukhang va yadi va dukham, sayogi paramo mataha. Word meanings. Atma, with his self. Opamyena, by comparison. Sarvatra, everywhere. Samam, equally. Pashyati, sees. Yaha, he who. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Sukham, happiness. Va, or. Yadi, if. Va, or. Dukham, distress. Saha, such. Yogi, a transcendentalist. Paramaha, perfect. Mataha is considered. Translation, he is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Please repeat. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God, and the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all the lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servant of the Lord. Nacha tasman manushyeshu kaschin me priyakritamaha. Bhagavad Gita 1869. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. So I thought of this verse in connection with BhaktiVinod Thakur because BhaktiVinod Thakur's life was a life of preaching, and in particular of literature also. Not just, he organized everywhere he went when he was transferred in different places as a magistrate working for the British government at that time. India was still part of the British Empire. When he was transferred to Jagannath Puri, he regulated the activities of the temple, and he created a place in the temple for Vaishnavas to have Krishna Katha. And he formed a society of people that came there every day to discuss Krishna's pastimes. And everywhere he went, he organized these different groups, the Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha, and various different groups. His vision was to make Krishna consciousness well known throughout the world, the same way that Christianity and Islam are these big expanding religions that go through other countries and are well respected and so forth. He very much respected Christian theology, actually. As a young man, he studied many English Christian theologians, and he considered that a lot of the Hindu theology, which was impersonalistic, was offensive to the Vaishnava conclusion. So he actually preferred that the Christian theologians, in many respects, were more harmonious with the Vaishnava conclusion than many of the impersonalist interpretations. But he emphasized that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the savior of the world that had come to spread the pure message of Krishna Bhakti and the whole complete teaching of love of God everywhere, and should be recognized and respected by all people of the world in all other countries. So this was part of his vision, and that's why he was carrying on correspondence with scholars and sending his books to Canada and to London and to other places. And he also imparted that vision and that mission to his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who actually at great expense, when they had very little money, sent two sannyasis to London to try to preach Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking world. That same Bhaktisiddhanta, when he first met Srila Prabhupada, he said that Srila Prabhupada should preach in the English-speaking world. And also, shortly before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati passed away, Srila Prabhupada wrote him a letter saying, "You have so many disciples who are sannyasis and they're preaching, but I'm a householder, and I have to be concerned about caring for my family. What can I do? What kind of service can I do to please you? And this was just like a week before Bhaktisiddhanta passed away. And he wrote, we were there, Jagarini, remember we were there at the place in Jagannath Puri where Madhavananda told us about. This is the place where Bhaktisiddhanta wrote that letter to Srila Prabhupada. And he said that you should write books about Krishna consciousness, and you should write in the English language and spread Krishna consciousness in the English language, and this will be good for you and it will be good for those who hear you. So that mission, particularly the mission of book distribution, was also the mission of BhaktiVinod Thakur and the vision of BhaktiVinod Thakur. And it was the vision of Lord Chaitanya, who assigned to the 6 Goswamis the duty, he instructed them and assigned to them the duty of writing books to explain in detail the genuine understanding of Krishna Bhakti, including the intimate understanding of Krishna Bhakti. I saw a picture on the internet recently, a couple months ago, of a pujari offering puja to a little structure, like some kind of enclosure, like a shed box, but made of ceramic or more solid architectural stuff. And he was offering it, and the caption said that in this structure, the books written by the 6 Goswamis that were considered too confidential for people in general to read are kept there, and it hasn't been opened or disclosed to the world. There's this structure that has books that they wrote that are too confidential to read. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is sometimes known as the 7th Goswami because he also wrote so many books, as we previously discussed. And I have shown you a list of 7 pages, probably about 110 or 120 different of his writings, which, not to mention his periodicals. He had monthly magazines and papers. And so we should meditate on this, that the way to be compassionate yogis, to try to help spread Krishna consciousness rather than just try to become liberated for ourselves, is to help in the book distribution movement. And Vaishesika's book about that is very wonderful. He discusses the history of how, at Prabhupada's insistence, although the devotees considered it to be practically impossible, Prabhupada published this Krishna book, these big silver books, volumes, and said they were supposed to distribute them. They were selling magazines for, like, trying to get a quarter for a magazine, and now they had these big books, they had to get $8 or something, $9 for a big book. And in those days, that was a lot of money, and they thought that it would be impossible, but they prayed very hard, and they were wondering, how are we going to do it? And then they discovered that they could do it, and they started doing it, and it made them very, very enlivened. And Vaishesika tells that story, and then he explains the tenets that this distribution of literature about Krishna consciousness is the perfect plan for how Krishna consciousness will conquer the world. And we can speak something, people will hear us, and they may be impressed, or maybe not, but they'll just go away and forget it. But if they take home a book, they'll be able to read it over and over again and know it's there, it's something tangible, and it's something that always... And these books are actually alive. We read Srila Prabhupada's books and get newer and newer realizations all the time, because they're actually deities of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada said that he wants to see that in the home of every gentleman, every respectable gentleman, there should be a set of Srimad Bhagavatams and Chaitanya Charitamrita. I was reading earlier today that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was trying to secure a copy. A lot of these books were hard to get, Chaitanya Bhagavat, this and that. But even Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita were difficult for him to get in those days, in the 19th century. Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement that was started around the year 1500 AD, by the mid-18th century, it had become sort of overgrown with different Sahajya groups that had all kinds of different speculations and their own literatures that had been invented, and a lot of it was immoral. A lot of what they were teaching was very immoral, and they were very bold about that. And they had been not very much appreciated in Hindu society because of their immorality. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur kind of used his energy of his life to rescue Gaudiya Vaishnavism from that disrepute, and to disclose that there was this wonderful tradition of teaching and literature, and that this Hare Krishna Kirtan was meant to become the hymn. There's a Gita Mahatmya by Sripad Shankaracharya that glorifies the Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada included it in the introduction to his Bhagavad Gita. In fact, it's the conclusion of his introduction to his Bhagavad Gita. He discusses the Gita Mahatmya. And the last verse says, Hare Krishna. Huh? Okay. Jai. Ekam Shastram, Devaki Putra Gitam, Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva, Eko Mantras Tasya Namani Yani, Karmapyekam Tasya Devasya Seva. The 7th verse of Gita Mahatmya says, in this present day, people are very much eager to have one scripture, one God. Well, Srila Prabhupada isn't just directly translating it, he's explaining it. In this present day. It doesn't say in this present day. But he's saying in this present day, people are very much eager to have one scripture, one God, one religion, and one occupation. Therefore, Ekang Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam. Let there be one scripture only. One common scripture for the whole world, Bhagavad Gita, the Gita of the son of Devaki. Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva. Let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna, the son of Devaki. Eko Mantras Tasya Namani. And one hymn, one mantra, one prayer. The chanting of his name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Karmapi ekam tasya devasya seva. And let there be one work only, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this was, Sripad Shankaracharya wrote this, and this was the conclusion of his Gita Mahatmya, and Srila Prabhupada used that Gita Mahatmya as the conclusion to his introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is. And that was just the very end of the introduction. So this was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision, that not that he was sectarian at all. In fact, in his approach was very, Catholic, ecumenical, very much embracing universal values and people from all cultures. But pointing to the super excellence. If everyone considered things carefully and correctly, they would see that Lord Chaitanya's teachings include every other important teaching, but something more besides, and something very special that should be distributed to the whole world, and that this would really be the highest welfare work and help resolve the suffering of the whole world. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur dedicated his life to that mission of distributing Krishna consciousness all over. He organized the Vaishnavas, he corrected mistakes, he wrote about the Apasampradayas and entrusted his son to clear away the mess of these different sects that had created different false conclusions, false teachings, and he presented these wonderful literatures to really establish solidly this Krishna consciousness movement. And his great-great-grand disciple, I guess, was Gorkachor Das Babaji, great-grand disciple, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, succeeded actually in bringing this mission around the world. And so we're here today to glorify Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was sort of, in this way, the founder of this mission. Lord Chaitanya founded this Hare Krishna movement and gave instructions to the 6 Goswamis, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur is known as the 7th Goswami, who had this vision that now we have to make it something that's not just Hindu or not just Indian, but it's something all over the world. And it's the absolute truth. It's the real truth. It's really profound truth. People still may see it like that. When we go out, they don't know what is Hare Krishna and what is. They can't see that this is the essential essence of understanding God and love of God, understanding yoga, understanding spirituality, understanding the soul and what's good for the soul and what's bad for the soul, and how to get released. And it can be as intricate and sophisticated as you want, but it can be just as simple as just chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And so we owe everything to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because without Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have traveled over the seas and written his books and encouraged us to distribute his books. Srila Prabhupada said that he saw that in Bengal, the Communist Party was able to spread by distributing literature, Marx and Engels and philosophy, and having like discussion groups where people would discuss, dialectic materialism and the science and the laws of history of class struggle and so forth, and people would become inspired and think that they had some real knowledge, and they would become organized politically. But in the same way, we can distribute and have discussion groups of people studying these books and then going out and influencing everyone they meet and giving them this knowledge that they've gotten through those discussions. Sometimes I see Christians, I used to, when I was taking some classes at Berkeley back in around 1992, and I used to go out in the morning, I wasn't drinking coffee, but I'd go sit in a cafe and drink like hot milk and sit there and study and read, eat a bagel or something and read. And I would see that there was fellowship groups in the cafe, groups of Christians would come around and they would have some part of the Bible that they would have prepared for and read that week, and then they would come together and discuss it. And I thought, this is wonderful, and we should be doing the same thing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and all of Srila Prabhupada's books, Nectar of Devotion, and go and then have these discussion groups where we, sort of churn the nectar and understand more and more and go deeper and deeper into what Srila Prabhupada is saying. So let's have some discussion, and then again, I know I asked before, but I think we have, at 11:30 we have Pushpanjali, right? And we're just...
Actually the schedule, I was told,
Yeah.
that at 11:20 there is going to be some letter, that is letter from my Guru Prabhu, and Namahatta, someone will read that letter.
Okay.
And 11:30 is going to be offering of the MSF results,
Jai.
and then offering of Pushpanjali.
Okay. So let's have some. So that's a long time. It's only 5 after 10 now. We'll chant some bhajans too, but let's have some discussion. if anybody has something to say about BhaktiVinod Thakur, some comment on what we heard, or question, realization. Has anybody read The Seventh Goswami, the book by, I think it's Rupa Vilas wrote it. Someone. This says, no, I can't find it now. Adapted, okay, yeah, Rupa Vilas Das. Adapted from the Seventh Goswami, Chronology of the Life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I've just read a little of it. I think it would be very, very long to read the whole thing, although there were some very interesting parts of it. But let's have some discussion. Can someone... anyone have any comment? Yes, Victoria?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You are mentioning that it was organized Namahatta groups. Is it possible to highlight it a little bit more? What kind of groups and how it was?
Well, nowadays they do Namahatta programs. I don't know exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Namahatta groups were, but they're similar. I think it's something similar to the Bhakti Vriksha groups that we do now, or we call it the Namahatta program, that groups of friends will get together regularly, like we were talking about the Christian fellowship groups, and chant together, read together, and discuss together, and also consider and plan how to spread Krishna consciousness together, because this is an important part of our... Yes, please.
Just recently, maybe not very recently, maybe a couple of months ago, there was one seminar given by, I don't remember the name, in our temple. They talked about these Namahatta programs, actually Bhakti Vriksha programs, according to the, as envisioned by the Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there is some difference between the way the Bhakti Vriksha programs we conduct here and his vision. And in his vision, as of now, what we see is that all the Bhakti Vriksha programs, they pretty much operate independently from the temple. And there is some disconnect. Although they may say, we are all affiliated ISV, there is still some disconnect. Every thing operates independently. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision is different. All the Bhakti Vriksha programs, they report to the temple. And right from the beginning itself, there is this mentality that is cultivated among the members that they are not independent, not independent. So that part of the temple itself. And there are checks and balances in place to enforce that. They are actually part of the temple. They report to someone in the temple. And when the temple, person says, I want all the bhakti, for example, let's say let's call all the Bhakti Vriksha programs, and we have some service here to do, and they need to come and do it. So there is something there. So.
Yeah, and when we're talking about Krishna consciousness, it's also important to talk about how to organize and spread Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur established a house in Calcutta, which he called Bhakti Bhavan, and he established a printing press there in the house. And, he was always very progressive in his thinking about how to spread Krishna consciousness in the modern world using modern techniques, and how to organize the Vaishnavas. One thing that he noticed was that the progress of spreading Krishna consciousness was disturbed when Vaishnavas had a tendency to form into different competing groups with one another and not cooperate with one another. I remember reading that, he was disturbed by, this tendency for false ego to invade. And Srila Prabhupada emphasized to establish this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and he emphasized that, we're not supposed to quarrel with other groups, but he wanted us, he impressed upon us that we serve within this group. This was his mission, and we serve within this group and make it very successful, and that he expected us to do very big things. Sometimes people feel, sometimes people from other of Prabhupada's God Brothers organizations and things like that mention they feel very sorry, that they feel that we're being sectarian or something like that. And it's not our intention to disrespect them or criticize them at all. It's just that Srila Prabhupada gave us this order that we should use our energies and our efforts to distribute his books, to read and study his books, and to promote Krishna consciousness in the way he taught us to do it. And we appreciate their efforts as well, and we're not criticizing their efforts at all. But that doesn't mean that we have to sort of, all this is kind of, you could say it's politics. It's how to organize people and communities and things like that. But he has a governing body commission structure, and he's created this structure, and he wants us to accept them as that structure as the guiding managerial principle for how we're spreading Krishna consciousness. But all the devotees should be thinking, how can we spread, how can we succeed, where should we establish a temple? And these Namahatta groups also, there's a tendency for groups to start, having their own identity and having their own programs, and not wanting to have their resources diminished by sharing it with some other group or some other enterprise. So it's important that we have an organizational structure that is able to bring the resources together, the people, the money. Srila Prabhupada said every enterprise needs land, labor, and capital. So all those things should be organized, and there may be many different organizations that can organize in different ways to spread Krishna consciousness, Hare Krishna. But in ISKCON we have our own ISKCON structure with our own authority, and we have a very nice temple here, ISKCON of Silicon Valley, and even though there's different Bhakti Vriksha groups can reach new people, and we have outreach programs in corporations and universities and so forth, the focus should all be that we're bringing people into the community rather than starting new communities that consider themselves separate. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I was wondering, so when someone starts Namahatta program or engages in some preaching, what should be the mood, and what do you think is the qualification? Because I've seen several, not all, I'm highly inexperienced, but sometimes also seen people who may not be very pure from inside, but they have a desire to preach. So they may have several unearths, and just like everyone does, but they might also be exhibiting Pratishtha. So what is the advisable thing here? And generally, what should be the mood for preaching?
Well, when Krishnadas Kaviraj went to write the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he first went to the temple of Madan Mohan and took permission from the deity and from the Vaishnavas. And that shows the mood of a Vaishnava, that we should never feel like I'm going to do something myself, independent, but I should feel like whatever I do should be authorized. So I would recommend that, before Jagarini has some comment too. Jagarini is talking something very practical about in this temple, and I'm talking about theoretically that, theoretically that we should always, our mood should always be not that I'm going to start my own movement, but that I'm going to take permission from the authorities, the advanced devotees, and if I'm in ISKCON, I should take permission from the advanced devotees in ISKCON, and the ISKCON authorities, they discuss these questions of politics and like local authority versus, like even big spiritual masters come to a temple and then everybody gives them a lot of money, and the temple president says, you're coming to my congregation and you're getting a lot of money from the people, and then you're just going away and taking it. You should share some of it with what we're doing here because we're bringing the temple in. And they have these discussions, and it may sound like it's a mundane consideration, but actually it isn't. And my realization of it, that BhaktiVinod Thakur emphasized this, is that for Krishna consciousness to be very attractive as the solution for all the world's problems. Srila Prabhupada in his preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam says that quarrels are ready to break out at every minute because it's Kali Yuga, even though the world is becoming smaller. Everyone's talking about now globalism. Even in this election, we're talking about globalism and everything because there's transportation, communication, we have internet, you can talk to somebody around the world at the push of a button immediately. In the World War of 1812, there was a war in the United States against England. It had to do with some shipping and different problems, different complaints that the United States had. The British were fighting Napoleon and they were capturing American ships and taking the sailors off, saying, now you're in the British Navy, conscripting Americans that way. So we had this war. And one of the biggest battles of the war was fought after the peace treaty had already been signed. In England, they had signed a peace treaty, but in those days, you couldn't find out instantly that the peace treaty was signed. It took a month for people to sail with wind power, right? To sail ships over to distribute the news. Otherwise, how would they know? There was no telegraph, there was no internet, there was no telephones or Xerox machines or satellite phones or anything like that. So now the world is becoming a very small place, but we have to show that, and this Krishna consciousness is a solution for the world's ills. It's a solution for the disruptions that that we have Brexit, people can't figure how to organize a government that can be a government of everyone, and then different people say, we're losing too much of our own sovereignty and too much of our own, and the bureaucracy over there, we don't like the way they run things, and there's a tendency for people to want to hive off into different groups, and that's politics. But for starting a Namahatta program, the local temple should have authority. When you come to a new temple, you might bring some ideas from another temple, and that's good, but you should sort of clear those ideas with the mood and the spirit of the local temple, and try to cooperate with the local temple. And the mood, as Ramananda Saka Prabhu was saying, the mood should be that it should be part of the temple's outreach program. So it shouldn't be an independent group, and it shouldn't be competing with the temple. And what Jagarini was saying was, in this temple, we've established that Bali Mardan Prabhu is the coordinator for the Namahatta programs. So that to start a new Namahatta program, take permission from Bali Mardan Prabhu. Bali Mardan Prabhu himself will also consult with Vaishesika, the temple management, and it shouldn't be done in the spirit that I'm coming to a new town and they don't do things the way we do things back in Calcutta or in South Africa or something. We should do things this way, but rather that let's be in harmony. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started a publication, an English language journal about Krishna consciousness. It was called The Harmonist. And the idea is that when Krishna is in the center, then everything can be done in harmony. That's the principle, is that when everyone is doing something for Krishna and they don't have any self-motivation, it's very easy for people to be organized in such a way that their activities can be harmonious. And that's also the principle of Varnashram Dharma too. It's not a matter that they have these classes. I mean, recognizing that the people work in these 4 different ways and you can have these 4 different classes is a principle that works even as a material principle. But the principle of Varnashram Dharma in Srimad Bhagavatam is that it's meant for pleasing Krishna. and that by putting Krishna in the center and having everyone organized along that principle, society can do something. It can perform sacrifice to please Krishna in a very pleasing, harmonious, and organized way, where everyone is like the different organs of the same body, so that they're all working together as organs. And if we can show that Krishna consciousness works as a successful ideology that way for interpersonal relations with devotees, then we can be very, very attractive for the world. And I would have to say that so far our success is checkered, mixed, Sometimes if you go on the internet and type in Krishna, you'll find all kinds of very strange things and devotees fighting about a lot of things. Part of it's the nature of the internet. People on the internet fight about everything. But we would expect to see a big, organized, cooperative, harmonious group of people who are all pulling in the same direction. And and that requires some tolerance. It requires some sense that people have different mentalities and different inspiration and things, and we have to know how to properly adjust to. So that's the art of management. Vaishesika talks about ISV is kind of Silicon Valley, stands for individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. That comes from a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Karandar Das in 1971 or 72. And he said that this is the art of management. It's not that you want to create a big bureaucracy that controls everybody, but you want to present newer and newer challenges and learn how to inspire people to actually voluntarily improve their service and in a spirit of cooperation. And yet the manager has to know how to do that in such a way that it doesn't cause any friction. So that's very much also a part of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's legacy, and that I had read that he had established these organizations or societies, but he was frustrated to a certain extent that people were fractious and they didn't get along, and and at the same time there is an importance for keeping Siddhanta proper. For example, one of the episodes in his life, there's, what's his name, Charan, I'm trying to remember the name of, there's one Goswami from Puri, and his followers maintain the samadhi of Haridas Thakur there. And I forget his name right now, something Charan Goswami. But he had this vision, or and made this propaganda, this argument, that you chant japa, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but for kirtan, instead of chanting Hare Krishna, you should chant Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna Hare Ram, something like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was opposed to that idea. I read that this morning about here, that he went and he had some meetings and he very strongly preached to that person. And he actually convinced that person that he was wrong. And the person apologized and asked forgiveness, but then went mad and passed away a few days later. So his followers still promote this Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered kind of concocted, speculative mantra that we should stick to what Lord Chaitanya gave. So there is this tendency for new ideas to come up, and some of them are approved and some of them are not approved, and we should be very careful. But it's easy to take a humble position and do something sort of very nice and sweet for the Lord. And if we're actually, like I think I read here in the beginning of the reading about how Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire was to retire from government service and to go with Jagannath Das Babaji to Vrindavan and to spend the rest of his life in Braj. And then he had a dream, and in the dream Lord Chaitanya came, and Lord Chaitanya said, "You will go to Vrindavan, but I have something for you to do in Navadvip, so what are you going to do about that?" And then he woke up, and when he explained his dream to Jagannath Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji, he recommended that he take a position at Krishna Nagar, close to Navadvip, and stay in the government service for a while longer. And then he discovered Lord Chaitanya's birthplace there. So the idea is that we should not disturb other Vaishnavas. We should really try to get along and recognize that there's a powerful influence in harmony. In fact, it's something, if our goal is really to please Lord Chaitanya, we have to recognize that he won't be pleased if we cause disturbance with other devotees. That should be, in fact, Lord Chaitanya taught that. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, he says that when the devotees are quarreling, Krishna goes away. So if we want to, there's a famous verse that says that Krishna says, I am not in the heart of the yogis, I am not in Vaikuntha, I'm where my devotees are glorifying me and chanting my glories. So that's where Krishna is really present in this discussion about Krishna consciousness. And yet, if the devotees quarrel, then Krishna disappears from that place. He's not interested in that. So, and there's Lord Kapila Dev teaches Devahuti also that one who worships the deity very nicely, but he doesn't know how to respect all the super soul in everyone's heart, then he may as well be pouring oblations into ashes rather than into a fire. So we have to learn to have that mood. There's one pastime of BhaktiVinod Thakur's, well, it's really a pastime of Bhakti Siddhanta's, but BhaktiVinod Thakur was initiated by a guru in the seminal line of Janava Ma, Lord Nityananda's wife, and that was Bipin Bihari Goswami. And BhaktiVinod Thakur always respected Bipin Bihari Goswami as his guru and offered him all respects. And one time when Bhakti Siddhanta was like 6 or 7 years old, I think like 7 years old, they went there to Bipin Bihari Goswami, and BhaktiVinod Thakur bowed down, and Bipin Bihari Goswami put his feet on Bhaktivinod Thakur's head to bless him. And then when Bhaktivinod Thakur left the room, 7-year-old Bhakti Siddhanta said, "You don't know who my father is. You're just a Kanishta Adhikari, or you would realize that you should, even though you're his guru, you're not allowed to put your feet on his head." And he strongly criticized him that way. And then when Bhaktivinod Thakur came back, I just read it this morning, but my Kali Yuga memory is so weak that I can't remember. So we have to know that advanced devotees can see exactly what level other devotees are at and how they can deal with one another, and we should just be cautious. If we can't see, we should be cautious and try to help that they can guide us and take guidance from dreams and if our dreams are real, they'll be confirmed by senior devotees. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this dream about Lord Chaitanya telling him, "You still have something to do in Navadvip." But then he didn't go write a newspaper article about it. "Hey, I've had a dream of Lord Chaitanya." But he went in confidence and talked to Jagannath Das Babaji, who was the greatest Vaishnava of his time, the leading Vaishnava Sarvabhauma, Jagannath Das Babaji, and then discussed with him what should I do. And so that's the bigger thing, that we should that's part of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mission, is that we should learn to really show people how it's not just a church or a religion, a sectarian religion that is organized along the principle of making one group successful and conquering other groups or anything like that. It's really a science of the soul, and how it really, how we can really, and the science of love of God, and how we can really understand it, so it can work both in a spontaneous and individual and voluntary way, and at the same time, it can work as an organization that can succeed in doing things. So I remember one time Hanumat Preshak Swami said, leading devotees is like herding cats. The devotees are not all, sometimes it's not easy to get them, but we should be able to find a way to make devotees work together like a coordinated body, to be able to achieve big things, and that requires some intelligence and requires some organization to be able to get devotees to cooperate together like a different organs of the same body that can work in a coordinated fashion, rather than the one arm going this way and one leg going that way and the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a great answer. I have a follow-up question. Sometimes, in the same vein, we might want to help others in the spirit of compassion and cooperation, but others may not be, or even we might not be willing to take any instruction or any help. Who are you to, what makes you qualified, kind of a thing. For example, one may not be initiated, one may be initiated, or the other way around, whatever. So what should we do in such situations, and how should we approach?
So, well, first of all, there's not just one rule for every situation. Like I said, it requires some intelligence, but I think a good starting point is humility. The world's not going to end if we don't get to do what we want. The important thing is to make sure the spiritual master is pleased. If one is not initiated, one should be aspiring at least to, maybe you haven't met your spiritual master yet, something like that, but be aspired to get initiated, but also be aspiring to work in cooperation with senior devotees in your area. So this is another discussion that devotees have had, even in GBC levels. They're writing papers and discussing it, that sometimes the disciple uses his relationship with his spiritual master to quarrel with his temple president. That he'll get some instruction from his spiritual master and say, my spiritual master wants me to do something else, not this and everything. And the temple president said, we need somebody to cover the cooking duties now. And, maybe we can, if your spiritual master wants you to, write a book or something, we can make some other arrangement there. But, they talk about it as parallel lines of authority, that the spiritual master should be sensitive that local temple organization also has its own requirements and its own vision and its own, things. But devotees may disagree on things, and you see them now. The temple in New York, the temple president wants to sell the building, and he's, wants to start a much bigger, beautiful building in Queens. And then there's groups of devotees. Jayadvaita Swami is one of them who thinks, no, they should keep this building in Brooklyn where it is, and devotees will quarrel about such things. But if the quarrel can be done respectfully and humbly, carefully, because we have to avoid offending Vaishnavas, then we can, we may have different opinions, but we can show how we can work cooperatively. But in an individual situation, I would say that it's good to be humble and respectful, and try to, this is all human relations. Everybody has these problems. This is it's part of samsara. We have families, and our children don't obey us, and people may not all respect us the way we expect them to respect us, or whatever. And on an individual level, it's not one size fits all. There's not one solution for everything, but using your intelligence and chanting. One thing that Giriraj Swami said was that there was a situation in a temple where devotees were quarreling. I don't remember the details. I think it was probably in Mumbai, and that they started having like a 24-hour kirtan, or at least a 12-hour kirtan, and then things magically kind of subsided. So it really is, we should recognize that Krishna consciousness is practical, it actually works. That if we focus on chanting more japa, chanting better japa, chanting more rounds, that's often a solution, that it brings, because Super Soul is in everyone's heart, and it will bring us all into harmony. And maybe some of the discord may be caused by false ego getting in the way, and if we chant, that can smash false ego and get people more into harmony. And tolerance, things may not be going right for some time, but it's a quality of a devotee to be tolerant. So even if things aren't going right, a devotee can be patient and tolerant and know that things will be righted in a proper way, without creating a political faction and a discord with other devotees. So we're talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but we're talking about one of his qualities was that he was establishing groups of devotees, and he had a vision to establish that Krishna consciousness would be an ideology. Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement would be an ideology that's successful throughout the whole world, as to make benefit to the whole world and make everyone's lives better. And one of the challenges to that vision is that devotees may break into different groups and compete with one another like that. And we should be I think it's better to be very humble. And even Srila Prabhupada and his godbrothers, they didn't always get along about everything, and Srila Prabhupada instructed us that we should see it as something transcendental. It wasn't our place to go and argue. Prabhupada said, sometimes he said very strong things about some of his godbrothers. Later, before he passed away, he also asked one of his godbrothers to ask all the other godbrothers to forgive him that he used hard words for the, and then his godbrother said, no, there's nothing to forgive, everything you did was right. There's these pastimes like that. But we shouldn't become partisans in some kind of a political combat. And our governing body commission is good at, or has tried to be good. Maybe sometimes they haven't been as good as they can, but our leaders are trying to be good at, harmonizing ISKCON with the rest of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and not just Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but world religions. People still don't understand who we are. Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj was one of the founding members of this bishop from, not a Catholic bishop, but I think Episcopalian, which is the American version of the Anglican church that they have in England. But in England, the Queen or King, the monarch of England, is the head of the church, and America have a church called Episcopalian, which also has a Protestant tradition that's similar to the Anglican church, but it's not run by the Queen of England. And his name was Swing, or maybe Swig, I think it was Swing. But his idea was, this bishop of this Episcopalian church, his idea was that we have a United Nations that's supposed to prevent wars, and by giving a forum for diplomacy internationally and so forth. But we need a United Religions, where people from different religions can come to understand each other. For example, on the internet there's so many crazy things, and I saw somebody had published a group of Muslims in Detroit were participating, and I don't know enough about Islam, they were probably Shiites. They were participating in one of these ceremonies where they grieve. One of the martyrs, like 1300 years ago, was attacked by another group, and they were beating themselves, and they had a picture of one of their martyrs with his head severed on a spike or something like that. And the person who was trying to arouse anti-Islamic feelings to the Americans said, look, they've got the head of Jesus on a spike because this is what they want to do to your Lord, or something like that. So I said, that's not Jesus, and Muslims respect Jesus as one of their holy prophets, and but people don't understand, and there's a lot of ignorance, and then they use the ignorance to inspire a lot of hatred in politics. So this Episcopalian bishop started this United Religions Initiative, and they organized very much like different Namahatta cells. And Bhaktiswarup Damodar Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, was one of the founding members. They wanted to get someone who represented Vaishnavism involved, and he agreed, and he helped them work out their charter, and he spent a lot of his time and energy working on this charter, how the URI is organized into different groups, and they participate, and who they allow everybody. They said that if someone wants to participate as an atheist group too, that can be part of the United Religions Initiative. They had all these questions that they had to deal with. And I remember I got involved with it because after Bhaktiswarup Damodar Maharaj passed away, he had been organizing a big conference within that group to take place in Mayapur. And after he passed away, Jayapataka Swami asked Bhakti Purushottama Swami to come. Their headquarters is in San Francisco. This bishop's wing is from San Francisco. So they had a headquarters in the Fort Mason Center area, or maybe in the Presidio. And I went there with Bhakti Purushottama Swami, and they had a wonderful big conference in Mayapur where they all agreed to be vegetarian and to not smoke, and I think they let them drink coffee or something like that because some of them needed it. But they came there, many representatives of many religions from all over the world, and so this is part of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision, that understanding Lord Chaitanya, understanding that there's a super soul in everyone's heart, and understanding that Krishna consciousness is not just some sectarian concern. It's not like the comparative religions, philosophy of religions professors say, oh, you're a little sect within Hinduism, you know. But Srila Prabhupada said, no, actually, Krishna is not just an Indian god or Hindu god, he's God of everyone, and that we're part of, this is the actual science of love of God and of the soul that belongs everywhere. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I just had this list of publications. Very early in his career, he gave a speech that's very famous. Let me see if I can find it. The Bhagavat, 1869. So he was just 31 years old. At 1869, he gave a speech, a lecture. The Bhagavat, its philosophy, its ethics, and its theology. It's a very broad-minded, some of you may have read it before, but he is trying to present the Bhagavat to the Bengali intelligentsia of his time, in English, because they spoke English. He was presenting it in a way that, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not a sectarian concern, it's not, just, some Hindu book or Indian book, but it's actually the book that explains the whole universe. It explains the demigods and the demons and where everyone belongs, and it's very, very profound. It's not just some mythology of one group of people or a tribe, that's out to conquer other tribes or anything like that, but it's very, very deep and profound and subtle, and that the greatest philosophers in the world, if they could acquire a taste, they would see that the very jewels, essence of philosophical truth, and besides that, of artistic beauty and emotional, the pinnacle of poetics and literature is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a very broad-minded in his approach, and he wrote many different things. Sometimes people will read one kind of thing, sometimes he would write something aimed at Bengali villagers who were practically illiterate. And sometimes he would write things that were, they were aimed at different audiences, and he would tailor what he was talking about to the audience he was talking about. So sometimes it's hard to imagine the same author of both things. But it was because of the great scope and expanse of his vision that this Lord Chaitanya's movement is for everyone in the whole world. Jagarini.
I had a little comment towards the question Prabhu asked.
Sure.
Aside from the the important point that you made, that we should all try as best we can to get along, there's also the point of getting it right. And I think that the reason for the temples that are well organized to want to monitor to some degree the Bhaktivinoda programs, the local programs, is because they want to just make sure that the devotees are interpreting Srila Prabhupada's books correctly. Because we've seen it in the past where someone, decides to start a group, but they're not quite clear on Prabhupada's intention or direction, and maybe get it a little bit wrong. And it's always difficult to change once you've gotten something wrong. Prabhupada used to talk to us about Juilliard, the famous music school. He would tell us how they wouldn't take anyone into the school that already learned music somewhere else, because it's very, very difficult once you've learned one way to change and try and do it a different way. So it's safer, and it's also in line with Vaishnava etiquette, and it's keeping with Guru Shastra Sadhu to check in with the temple if they've got an organized program. Vaisheshika Prabhu is our temple president. He's very organized. He likes things very organized. And he teaches us that in organizing things go further. They're more successful. If you have an idea, if you write it down, you're more likely to carry it out than if you just think it. So the methods that he puts in place are meant to expand the movement in the Bay Area, and they're proving very successful. So at our temple, we've put Balimardhan Prabhu is in charge of the outreach programs, and checking in with him first would be the way to really be connected to this whole line of succession coming through Srila Prabhupada and the devotees here. And that's not to say that if you were, traveling and you met someone sincere and you wanted to have a gathering at their house to read Prabhupada's books together. But that's different than organizing a Bhaktivinoda group on a regular basis and being the coordinator or the teacher of that group and not really being up to, not knowing enough to do that. So, anyway, that's what I...
So, does anyone want some singing now? We already sang the song, Narottam Das Thakur's Song of Separation from Departed Vaishnavas. But we should sing some of the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Gurudev and Ohe Vaishnava Thakur. Was there someone here who could lead the singing of those songs? Prabhuji, could you lead those two songs, Ohe Vaishnava Thakur and Gurudev?